actually a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. My brother came to me. He was strapped for some cash. He hadn't worked in a little while. And he asked me for a loan. And I know it took a lot of swallowing his pride to ask me, but I also needed to have some work done at my house. And so I decided I would make an arrangement with him, a deal. If he would do the work, the work that I needed to be done was going to be about the amount that he needed. So we agreed. We set a date for him to start, and he began. But after a couple of days, he left. He had something else come up, and he didn't come back. He promised to finish it, but one thing after another, he called and said something came up for him, and he couldn't do it. And so the job remained undone for several months. And during all this time, all I thought about was how he wasn't doing his part of the deal. I could only see the unfinished work, and this was an evidence to me of the failure for him to keep his word. And after a while, the excuses didn't matter anymore because I thought, well, it's just never going to be finished. And so it was, unfinished for months. Then it suddenly occurred to me that the thing I was thinking about was the uncompleted work. And that was constantly being reinforced by looking around and seeing that it wasn't done. But if I stopped thinking that way and thought, well, let me imagine it being finished and put in the good thoughts, then things would change. Well, nothing changed. I could still see the evidence. Every positive thought I had was being countered of the thought of nothing changing. So, thoughts are energy forms. The more you think about something, the more energy it has. And this spinning energy attracts more thoughts like it. It's what they call the law of attraction. And everything that has ever been created or ever will be created started out as a thought at that one energy moment. And you can't stop thoughts unless you've achieved a very high level of meditation. But when you stop meditating, the thoughts come right back again. So you can't really stop them. They're there. They come in. You can learn to focus your thoughts on something that you really want, and you can manifest that. But you can't stop all the thoughts coming in. Those other thoughts will always come in. So having positive thoughts about something that you want to change is good, but if the negative thoughts are still there, they work against each other. The key to my stuckness, where I was stuck, was that I still held the thought, he owes me. And as long as I kept thinking that, he did. Well, I thought it was very justified, but it was not serving me very well. I decided then that I was going to look at it in a different way, and that I made this deal, I made this money that he owed me, or the work that he owed me, as a gift. And it was in my mind, and I just said, okay, this is a gift. I'm going to let it go. I'm not going to worry about it. I'll have to do something else. 2 days later, he called me. He apologized for not getting the work done, and he said, I have some time this week. Can I stop by? Come on over. He did, and he finished the job. Not only that, he did a few more things for me. 3 months ago, my granddaughter died. She ended her life. That's Dara there. It was a shock for all of us. No one thought she was holding thoughts of despair so great that she could no longer bear to go on. The news of her death literally knocked me off my feet and sent me reeling for days and weeks. I felt like a part of me had been ripped away. And even now, music can trigger a gush of tears or a memory of the last time I saw her. It just, like now, it just stabs my heart. These moments seem further and further apart as time goes on, and the pain is diminishing, little by little. Sometimes I thought I was being disloyal if I tried to forget, and that somehow I wouldn't love her as much if I did try to forget, or love her as much as I did when she was alive. But I know that I could no more stop loving her or remembering her than I could forget to get up in the morning. But how was I going to learn to live with these two things? For days and weeks after Dara's death, I could not stop thinking about her, about the moment I heard the terrible news, about the grief-stricken faces of my family, my son, my daughter-in-law, and her younger sister. I had no words to describe the pain. It went to bed with me at night, and it was waiting for me when I woke up in the morning, which was often in the first few weeks, waking up in the middle of the night. As much as I didn't want to think about how she died, I could not help but try to put a reason to it, to somehow find a way to understand, and then I would have peace. But more than that, I wanted to let go of this obsession to know why and accept that some things will remain a mystery, perhaps only to be learned when I exit from this life. Friends and relatives sent cards and flowers and spent time with me. My sisters and brothers wouldn't leave me alone. I'm not sure what they wanted, I thought I was going to do, but I appreciated their being there nevertheless. They took care of me when I could barely function. As time passed, the cards came in trickles and the visits were spaced in days at a time, as it was meant to be. I found ways to distract myself, sometimes meaningful, sometimes mindless, like playing solitaire for hours. So how do we let go of these stories that we tell ourselves when something terrible happens? The first step is to become conscious of the story that's playing in our minds. We need to recognize the thoughts that make up this story and allow them to pass through. As you become more aware of the thoughts and release them, you will notice that they begin to diminish in their power to get you angry or hurt or upset. You don't dwell on the ones that carry a negative message, and the negative energy starts to lessen. As your emotions diminish, a space is created for other, more pleasant, positive, and creative thoughts to come in. Into that opening flows the possibility and opportunity to change your perspective, which further releases attachment to the old story. You can create a new story, one that feels better. I became more aware of my thoughts about Dara. Even when I had pleasant thoughts about her, and the most recent memories of her death would come rushing in, as though to remind me I would never see her again. The thoughts of missing her created more of missing her. I needed to let her go. So I kept practicing the letting go techniques, and I noticed that I was no longer obsessing about her death. The piercing moments of missing her have grown farther apart. I just don't know when they will strike or how deeply. All I can do is allow them to go through me, to move through me. Sometimes the moments bring tears, so I allow the tears to flow. What I have noticed recently is that how my body holds this resistance to these old patterns and ways of thinking, and the thoughts I've been holding on to. When I give myself permission to cry until I can't cry anymore, my body relaxes and I feel relieved. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means letting go of thoughts that are keeping you angry or hurt or disappointed, even when you feel justified, even when your reality says otherwise. Holding on to hurts increases our vulnerability to disease and accidents, and storing those memories of injustice or insult or grief creates tremendous stress on the body. I have a cup of water here. It's about filled up to here. How much do you think this weighs? A few ounces? Okay. If I hold on to it for a couple of minutes, it feels a little bit harder. I mean, a little bit, heavier. If I keep holding it for half hour, I think my arm is going to go numb. It's going to feel like a dead weight. This is what holding on to those thoughts of hurt and grief, whatever they are, no matter how justified I feel, holding on and holding on and holding on makes it feel heavier and heavier and heavier. But releasing the story that you tell yourself and others about how you've been injured, whether it was physically, mentally, or spiritually, it brings ease and relief. A space is created for your well-being. You can't hold a grudge, a peeve, an insult, or worse, and still be open to receive all that you've been asking for. If you want peace of mind, you must allow a place for it. And that place is made ready by letting go of the thoughts about the hurt and replacing them with thoughts and actions of appreciation and gratitude. Dara was affectionately called Queen Bee by her friends because of her innate ability to get others to do things for her and to gather friends around. Now, whenever I see a bee, as I did one day when I was hanging out the wash, I say, "Hi, Dara. Isn't it a great day to be here?" I would like to end this message with a poem by Mary Oliver called The Journey. I've read it many, many times, and it's usually with the idea it's about finding your purpose in life. And of course, it is about that. But when I read it again recently, I found a new meaning for me in surrendering my grief. The journey. One day you finally knew what you had to do and began, though the voices around you kept shouting their bad advice, though the whole house began to tremble, and you felt the old tug at your ankles. "Mend my life," each voice cried. But you didn't stop. You knew what you had to do. Though the wind pried with its stiff fingers at the very foundations, though their melancholy was terrible, it was already late enough, and a wild night, and the road full of fallen branches and stones. But little by little, as you left their voices behind, the stars began to burn through the sheets of clouds, and there was a new voice which you slowly recognized as your own, that kept you company as you strode deeper and deeper into the world, determined to do the only thing you could do, determined to save the only life you could save.